Hi everyone, welcome to Smack Reviews. If you love our honest reviews, smack that subscribe button so you never miss out. So last weekend, I went to GalaxyCon Raleigh, a convention known for its massive lineup of panels, vendors, celebrity guests, and events. I've been attending every year since 2022, and usually I have a great time. But this year felt different. From the good to the not so great, here's my experience and whether I'll even bother going again next year. Let's get into it. So, during this convention, North Carolina was experiencing one of its hottest weeks ever. It got to 110 degrees here. This is something that hasn't happened in a long time. Going into this convention, I made sure to bring a fan necklace and a water bottle to help cool off. Usually with GalaxyCon, they have a huge crowd, which is something I've been used to over the years. However, this year it felt like they sold way too many tickets. For instance, we were in the line for one of the events called Anime Music Bingo, and we showed up 5 minutes before the event started. The person even told us we were in the right line for Anime Music Bingo. Suddenly, 2 staff members showed up, walked inside the room where the previous event was happening, came back out and put a sign up saying full capacity. This same person asked the staff members if they were still doing this event, and both members were saying it was already at full capacity. No one else can enter. This person was waiting longer than we were, and he was clearly upset that the event was at full capacity, and no one left the room from the previous event. Mind you, the previous event was a paid-only event, and we would probably have to have paid an extra fee to have a chance at joining Anime Music Bingo. There was a long line too for Anime Music Bingo, and they should have planned to have this in a larger room. They should have at least had people clear the room before Anime Music Bingo started. We were left in the dark about this until those 2 members showed up. From what I've heard and seen, there were other events that reached full capacity, and it even got to a point that people were either standing in the hallway or finding random places to take naps before an event became available. Another thing that bothered me was how inconsistent security was. Some people were getting checked, and for others, they just let them right in. This year, they were being super strict on the props policy and they banned wagons. I remember seeing a story about how someone's prop was pre-authorized for the event, and the day of the convention, they told them that they couldn't bring it or they would have to throw it away. The person had to buy a $40 Uber to take their prop all the way back to their apartment. This year, I felt like the events were okay, but what really bothered me was how similar events overlapped each other. For instance, since we couldn't go to Anime Music Bingo, we did Rockstar Trivia. This was a fun event, but honestly, they should have been at different times. They didn't offer another event like this later in the day. You would have thought because Anime Music Bingo was packed, they would have scheduled another one later in the day for those to go to. Another thing that happened near the front was people were being told they couldn't bring water bottles and food inside. The food part I understand, but the water bottle part felt excessive, especially because of how hot it was that day. Mind you, I personally didn't see any free water stations set up for guests. I've heard stories of people saying staff were unhooking the water fill-up areas and water fountains so people would be forced to buy water bottles there. That seems pretty cruel. From other people, I had heard that some were having heat exhaustion and some required medical attention. They had food trucks lined up on the street, but people didn't want to step outside into the heat and wait in line to get food and drink since they weren't letting people bring outside stuff in anyway. I've been to cheaper conventions and they had water pitchers set up for attendees to get water, and some even offered snacks. This convention could even offer the bare minimum on a hot day, and making people not bring their own drinks feels extreme and cruel. The convention center is a large building, and to go to the different floors, they have escalators, elevators, and stairs. Most people were using the escalators, but during the convention, the escalators literally stopped working near the main floor and the floor where the marketplace was. The AC wasn't on full blast like it should have been. I remember last year, I was freezing because they had the AC on full blast, but this year, I still felt hot. You also had people wearing full-on costumes from head to toe, and I just knew they were hot and sweating underneath. I kept it simple this year and felt the AC wasn't cold enough. It was like the building wasn't up to par. While this isn't GalaxyCon's fault per se, I do feel that a large part of why it felt too hot in there was because the event, I think, was oversold and the building couldn't keep itself cooled down enough with all these people inside. You have thousands of people and the escalators breaking back to back. It's just a disaster. The stairways were overflowing and the elevators are at full capacity. I felt bad for people who needed to rely on the elevators because even that had a long line. This part made me upset about the treatment some of the vendors experienced at GalaxyCon. I didn't learn about this until a few days ago. I want to share an experience from a vendor who was set up in the Marriott section of GalaxyCon. What they went through sheds light on a lot of behind-the-scenes issues that affected vendors this year, especially those paying top dollar for a spot at the marketplace. When this vendor arrived on Wednesday, there was zero signage directing people to their area at the Marriott. They were told more signage would come Thursday, but even then, it was minimal. Basically, no one knew they existed, including us. There was also confusion over empty tables. Vendors were originally told they'd be pulled first if tables became available, but instead they watched new vendors from outside just walk in and grab first come first serve spots, bypassing that entire system. Understandably, people were upset. This vendor paid $1,400 for their Marriott table, same price as main exhibitor hall, but there were no perks, no visibility, and no foot traffic. To put this in perspective for everyone, the Marriott is in a separate building across the street from the convention center. The main exhibitor hall is inside the convention center. To make matters worse, they weren't even told their vending hours properly, no signage, no updates. They only got their actual hours by Thursday night, after asking around and pushing for answers. The times weren't listed anywhere clear, not in emails, not on badges, not on the con schedule. The Marriott area had little to no online promotion, and the few signs that existed were poorly placed. Most attendees, including myself, didn't even know the Marriott vendors were part of the convention. Vendors were literally making their own signs and taping it around the venue, and that's the only reason some guests found out about them at all. They also mentioned huge safety concerns like no security at the door in the mornings. On Friday, attendees walked right into the vendor hall before official hours. That's a huge risk when you're leaving valuable merchandise out overnight. There was even a case where a vendor was blacklisted after confronting the director about all of this, and someone else got their phone taken overnight after being denied access to retrieve it. One staff member allegedly told them, "You can't live one night without your phone?" That's incredibly unprofessional. At the end of the day, vendors took it into their own hands, making their own signs, handing out business cards, posting online just to drive traffic to their section. Without those efforts, most attendees wouldn't have known they were even there. This is the most money that some of these vendors have ever spent on a table, and it ended up being the lowest sales day they've ever had. These vendors were losing money at the Marriott. The crazy thing about this story is that on Sunday, the Marriott vendors were given the option to reapply for next year, and they can only apply for the same area they had this year. Before that, they were promised that they will be the first on the wait list to be moved to the main hall next year. The vendors felt taken advantage of. It wasn't just a bad spot, it was a complete lack of support from the con itself. And honestly, many are reconsidering coming back. Hearing all this made me realize how much work vendors do to make cons enjoyable for everyone. They deserve better than this. GalaxyCon really needs to step up, because without these small businesses and artists, these events wouldn't be half as special. I feel that one of the major reasons that GalaxyCon this year felt disappointing was the overwhelming amount of celebrities that didn't show up this year, particularly a lot of the Scream cast members. Usually when multiple people from the same IP are at a convention, they usually do a panel together, and that's what I was most looking forward to at these conventions, and a Scream panel, of course, didn't happen. While many of them didn't show up due to scheduling conflicts and stuff that was beyond the convention's control, it was still disappointing that they weren't there. While there were other panels that of course happened, I just wish that we could have seen the Scream panel. That would have been a fun one to watch. Overall, this year of GalaxyCon was a letdown. I bought my ticket super early thinking it was going to be just as good as last year. Unfortunately, it missed the mark. I'm hoping next year they step things up and bring back the energy and organization that made past years so enjoyable. I just felt like the communication this year was lacking, and so was the transparency with the attendees and vendors. Unless major changes are made, I'm not sure I'll be attending again. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, share, comment, and please subscribe. Bye!